In the opening moments of the anime, a teacher arrives at Neji's school, where everyone seems to like him until he sneezes, causing something unexpected. All the girls' clothes simply evaporate, landing him in trouble. We are then introduced to another character, a vampire, who explains her situation through her memories. Following this, we see a teacher walking and a group of students ready to ambush her, but she creates a magical barrier and easily sends them into the river. Afterward, they are punished in the classroom, and we learn why they did it. She explains that if someone defeats her, they earn the right to leave the village and go to the capital, as the village leader said. However, it's not guaranteed that people will have a bright future there. She concludes her explanation by throwing the punished students out the window. Later, as these same students converse, we discover that in the capital, magic isn't so unusual, and they even have devices to use it. Their goal is to climb a tower visible from the village, the orbital elevator, the Pillar of Heaven. We then learn that Tuda, one of the boys, lost his parents in an accident he was also involved in, but he only lost his memories. During a tribute, a specter appears, telling him it awaits him at the top of the tower before disappearing. We see that he lives with the teacher Yukihime, and his routine involves going to school, where she teaches, beats him and his friends, and then they return home for dinner and sleep. Suddenly, one of the teachers, Tachibana, offers to help teach magic, providing magic apps for the students, which they use with ease, but they don't work for Tuda for some reason. The teacher gives him an accessory labeled Eternal, claiming it will work. At home, Tuta feels guilty using it, thinking it might be too good, so he gives it to Yukihime as a gift, and she starts using it. On the day of a new ambush attempt, now with magic, the students learn, but she doesn't intervene, wanting to see what happens. However, caught off guard, the students are evaluated by teacher Tachibana, who attacks Yukihime. She can't retaliate because the Eternal prevents her from using her magic. He had been posing as a teacher all along just to kill her, as her head is worth millions. At the moment he is about to finish her off, Touta arrives and blocks the attack. But in return, his arm is sliced by the bounty hunter, who then seriously injures both of them and moves to kill Tuda's friends. Yukihime, seemingly in her final moments, tells Tuda that he is an immortal monster and apologizes for it, saying that the past years pretending to be human with him were wonderful. To save his friends, he must drink her blood. He does so, rising as the immortal monster he is. The hunter attacks again, thinking it's enough, but Tuda regenerates completely and destroys the enemy with a single punch, though he falls unconscious afterward. As paramedics and police gather, Yukihime reveals she is alive and well. When asked how they survived, she reveals everything. Her real name is Evangeline, a 700-year-old vampire, and she explains that Tuda is immortal, thanks to a curse she placed on him at his parents' request to save him. The next day, with Yuki's identity exposed, they set off for the capital, and Tuda can finally see what lies at the top of the tower. In the early moments of their departure from the village, Tuta and Yukihime pass through the abandoned area of the metropolis. She explains that this isn't unique to this place but happens everywhere. While exploring, Tuta finds a river and decides to take a dip. Before the opening, he accidentally grabs the soft rear of someone else bathing in the river. Enraged to the point of wanting to kill Tuta, which is fair, the person introduces themselves as Kurum Maru, whose gender is still unknown. Kurum Maru says they can't return home until they find Evangeline. At that moment she appears, and without hesitation, Kurum Maru charges at her but fails. Evangeline calls her Chimerio, which seems to be the name of a race, and she claims to be part of a clan that hunts immortals. Evangeline appears far superior to Kurum Maru, but gives her a chance to fight, only if she can defeat Tuta. The battle begins, and both seem evenly matched until Kurum Maru slices Tuta's neck, but he reattaches his head and ends the fight by sinking his opponent into the asphalt. After the battle, Kurum Maru asks to be killed to preserve her honor, but Tuta thinks of something better. They become friends. They take a break at a hot spring to rest, where we learn they made a vow to be best friends until death, much to Kurum Maru's dismay. Afterward, Tuda has the brilliant idea to spy on Yukihime in the bath, but it doesn't end well for him as he receives an ice spell to the head and rolls down the hill. With Kurum Maru's help, He returns and snatches Yukihime's towel, who says she'll reward him, but he isn't interested in seeing her naked. We then see Kurum Maru becoming Yukihime's apprentice as well, and they embark on this journey together. While discussing everything, Tuda wonders if they could form a group of immortals to help people with their power. Yukihime laughs it off, explaining briefly as Tuda is hit by a car. Several black cars with agents arrive, even rolling out a red carpet for Yukihime, who reveals she was once part of such a group of immortals. Heading to the UQ Holder headquarters, Tuda seems very excited, while one of the immortals asks Yukihime how she put up with him for 2 years. Upon arrival, everyone introduces themselves and explains the requirements to join the group, which involves passing a test. It consists of landing a hit on your opponent. Tuta faces Karen, while Kurum Maru faces UQ Holder number 6, Jingoro. Both struggle, with Tuta taking repeated hammer blows to the head and Kurum Maru not being fast enough. While resting, they meet a housemaid and decide to help her. She introduces herself as Shinobu, an ordinary human working there, and asks them for a favor. While carrying several dishes to the warehouse, Tuda hears a voice telling him to follow a certain path. He arrives at a large space that seems too big to be just a warehouse, it's a cave. Exploring, they encounter a man who calls himself Number 2, Jinbei Shishido. He says it's a secret place and is impressed by the youngsters. To see if they are truly strong, he challenges them to pull a sword from a stone called Uruboros. Tuda tries the conventional way, but it doesn't work. Then, the voice tells him to turn a small lever on the sword's sheath, allowing it to easily come out of the stone. Jinbei is indignant with the sword, which responds to Tuta, speaking with that mysterious voice. It was the voice that called him there, but he doesn't control it yet. Jinbei demonstrates its potential, showing it can change weight up to 50 tons or more, creating devastating blows. Jinbei handles it effortlessly at that weight and tells Tuda to master the sword. This begins a series of training sessions worthy of a Rocky Balboa soundtrack. A week passes, with training including helping Shinobu with cleaning. When they finally meet their opponents, both begin their respective battles. Kurum Maru seemed to be struggling as his movements were easily read by his opponent. Remembering his battle with Tuda, where he didn't hold back, he opens his guard, allowing his arm to be severed, using it to strike his adversary. This bold move helps him pass the test. Meanwhile, Tuda was getting the hang of using his sword. It was challenging, but he managed to adapt to the fight. Just as he was about to pass the test, he hears a scream from the back and rushes to help. There, he finds several monsters attacking Karen. He jumps in to distract them, while Tuta makes Kurum Maru weigh 50 tons, easily destroying all the monsters. Afterward, Karen admits that the damage Tuta caused to her uniform with his sword counts as a hit, allowing him to pass the test. Despite this, Yukihime sends them to the underground to eliminate all those monsters. She discovers that someone stole her loot and sends them there as well. The episode begins with Tuda excited for his first mission, which involves supporting Karen. Upon arrival, he gets a bit confused, accidentally hitting other UQ Holder members, but soon understands that their mission goes beyond defeating the bad guys. They need to help the nuns and children of an orphanage threatened by some people in the suburbs, and it's their task to put an end to it. While nothing happens, Tuta is responsible for cooking, as he lost all the arm wrestling matches. Later, he trains alone to develop his quick-step technique, hoping it will help him win the arm wrestling competition so he won't have to cook every day. While practicing, a man named Kaido approaches, explaining how the technique works and ends up teaching him quite a bit. He introduces himself as Kaido and promises to teach him much more. As days pass, Tuda trains to do everything with his feet to enhance his skills. However, we see that Kaido is part of a group of immortal hunters ready to launch an attack. They start by eliminating UQ Holder agents, and then a professional assassin tries to surprise Karen during her bath, but it doesn't go as planned, so he stays there just to delay her. Meanwhile, Tuda is with 2 boys from the orphanage when he sees a fire and rushes to it, only to be ambushed by the same creatures that killed the agents and set the village ablaze. However, he is saved by Kurum Maru. Soon, Kaido and another member of the hunters arrive, but Tuta manages to escape. The battle begins quickly, with Kaido sealing Tuta with a technique that incapacitates vampires, then attacking Kurum Maru. With Tuta out of the fight, Karin also struggles against the Shadow Controller. The episode ends with Kurum Maru being struck and unable to react. The fifth episode begins with Hulk, the orphan boy, trying to help the two in the fight but getting captured. Just as he is about to be killed, Kurum Maru saves him, despite being in a deplorable state. From the mist that forms, Tuda appears, standing and unsealed. Meanwhile, the Shadow Controller is toying with Karin until she unleashes her sacred fury, defeating him with numerous blows in seconds. She then joins the fight with Tuda and the others. When Tuda reveals he already knew the werewolf was Kaido, they begin a mano-a-mano battle. The fight is intense until Kaido tries to finish Tuta by exploding his heart. But something happens dark. Magic corrupts his body, making him completely berserk. The third member of the group, the oldest, says he has seen this before, years ago, with dark magic, and that only two people have wielded it, a man who managed to control it and the dark Evangeline. As chaos takes over his soul, just as he is about to kill Kaido, Tuda stops the dark magic, overcoming it. When both are exhausted, Kaido suggests they settle it with an arm wrestling match. With a protagonist's speech, Tuda destroys everything with his strength, defeating Kaido. However, Tuda refuses to kill him, and they decide to retreat because the fire is already large enough for them to receive payment. As everything is consumed by flames, Yukihime appears, using her ice magic to save the city. Afterward, she meets with Tuda and the group, along with the defeated enemies. The older enemy recognizes her in her original form, but instead of attacking, he deceives everyone, creating a diversion and escaping. After the tension of the last mission, they have been training these days. Kurum Maru was taking Kurum Maru to training when they start talking about Tuta. Kuroko says that Kurum Maru seems to have feelings for him, whether masculine or feminine. Kurum Maru gets flustered, drops Kurum Maru on the ground, and runs away. While Kurum Maru is changing after a bath, Karen suddenly opens the door, claiming she didn't see anything and assuming Kurum Maru is a woman. They discuss how they can't have mixed rooms at the base, but Kurum Maru explains that their race has no gender until they reach adulthood, choosing on their 16th birthday. Meanwhile, one of the UQ members overhears everything and proposes something interesting. We see Kurum Maru disguising as a woman named Kuru, pretending to be Kurum Maru's cousin, just to have a date with Tuda to see if they really feel something for him. Before leaving, they borrow a motorcycle. On their way, they encounter a base member who lives on the top floor, but never leaves or talks to anyone. They continue their journey, reaching the capital, where they have a date that is surprisingly pleasant for Kurum Maru, who feels their heart race every time Tuta gets close. To continue, Kurum Maru suggests going to the tower with Tuta, who eagerly agrees. However, trouble looms as the same Shadow Controller is seen pursuing them at the tower. Kurum Maru reflects on their feelings towards themselves, and Tuta, realizing that he values them, regardless of being male or female. While pondering this, they are attacked by the Shadow Controller and another assassin. The controller traps Tuta in a dark dimension while the assassin blocks Kurum Maru. During the fight, they fall from the tower, destroying some things along the way. Reflecting on everything that happened, Kurum Maru decides not to choose between being male or female, but instead to stand by Tuta's side, revealing their true form. With this, Kurum Maru manages to free Tuta, and the hunters retreat. After everything, Kurum Maru gives a flimsy excuse that they saved their fake cousin. Once in a safe place, at the end of the episode, we see a brief dialogue between Iku and the strange girl who lives on the top floor, performing a ritual. After the date plan, the girl performing the ritual, Kiri, wants to talk to Tuda alone. In this conversation, Kiri begins to criticize Tuda for his incompetence in protecting her during the 6 times she was attacked. Tuda, confused, insists he has never seen her before. Suddenly, she is attacked and killed by something a shadow. Tuda assumes it's the same hunter who attacked him at the tower. After he dies, something strange happens. They find themselves back at the base. Kiri explains that her power allows her to reset time upon death, and Tuda was brought along because he was holding her hand at the right moment. After discussing the previous attempts, the hunter appears again, trying to kill Kiri. This time, Tuda is prepared, literally throwing him as far away as possible. Now, out of this time loop, Kiri explains that a powerful mage named Fate is after Tuda. She explains how Fate appeared before she reset time at one of the save points. On that day, there was a moment when Kurum Maru and she were separated from Tuda, and when a massive explosion occurred, it was too late. Arriving at the scene, they all faced Fate, who was petrifying everyone, but the mage easily defeated them. Kiri tried to petrify herself to return to her last saved state through the ritual. While discussing her time reversal powers with Tuda, she doesn't notice the others approaching. She later explains everything and reveals a plan. They head to the location where Tuda was first captured to put the plan into action. They take their positions, but Tuda, out of curiosity, decides to watch a video recorded by Yukihime in her archives. It talks about Fate and mentions that he was a friend of his grandfather, but changed completely after his death. Dazed by this news, Tuda is noticed by Fate before he realizes it. At the same time, they couldn't attack because his friends were also in the field. At that moment, Tuda's friends come and move towards him, distancing themselves from Fate. When Fate realizes he is already in the attack zone, he decides to strike, knowing that from that distance, Tuda's friends would be safe. However, he is stopped by a blow to the chest from someone disguised as a waitress. With this, Fate approaches while Tuda talks to his friends, claiming to be a friend of his grandfather. Afterward, Fate reveals that he can easily kill everyone there and wants Tuda to join him. Despite the situation, Tuta decides to fight, but first moves all civilians away, claiming there's a terrorist in the area. Karin arrives to distract and push his friends out of range, allowing Iku to act and fire a laser from his satellite at Fate, who defends himself but is exposed. As a last resort, Kiri throws herself into the water to return to her last ritual state, but fails as she is petrified. With Plan A failing, everyone present battles against Fate's mercenary allies while Tuta engages in a frantic fight with Fate. Karin notices a countdown on Kiri's arm, with less than a minute remaining. Tuda understands immediately and distracts Fate, using his power to weigh 500 tons and bring them both to the ground. As the countdown ends, Kiri breaks free from petrification and successfully executes the plan, teleporting everyone, including Fate, into a cave. Fate gives up fighting when he finds himself facing Yukihime, who was waiting there. He offers answers, knowing almost the entire truth. Everyone asks questions about his motives and why he did it. He claims it was to save Tuda's grandfather, Negi. Finally, Tuda asks if he killed his parents, and Fate confirms it. With this, Tuda sees no alternative but to send him to hell. Before he is attacked, a magic device activates on Tuda, showing a hologram of a recording from Negi, telling him not to trust Fate. Tuda also loses trust in Yukihime, realizing that the man who awaited him at the top of the tower was his grandfather, under Yukihime's orders. He destroys the device, cutting off communication with Negi. After a negotiation, we see Fate leaving the base with Kiri, who is very upset. Meanwhile, Tuda questions Yukihime about his grandfather with no results. People arrive at the UQ Holder base looking for the two of them. After some time training, Tuta decides to relax with a cup of tea with Shinobu, but they are interrupted by a new visitor who introduces herself as Mizore Yukihime. She claims Tuda is an enemy of women because his grandfather, Negi, had relationships with many of his students and left a huge mess. They confront each other, but Tuda is much stronger than her and even saves her after throwing her far away. She says it was just a test and suggests they should marry to avoid endangering any women, but he refuses immediately. Later, Yukihime and Mizore's grandmother reminisce about when Negi, Tuda's grandfather, was their teacher, who was apparently very well loved. Mizore tries to win Tuda over with food, making lunch for him. Kiri, Karin, and Kurum Maru are already worried about this and give a valuable tip that brings couples closer, rubbing the loved one's back 50 times in the hot springs. At the springs, while relaxing, all the girls and Kurum Maru go there to try the tip Kuroko mentioned, starting a fight to see who gets to rub his back. They end up destroying even the roofs in this fight for him. In the end, the one who performs the ritual to get closer is Yukihime, but nothing seems to happen. After the incident, Shinobu and Mizore make peace, but we don't know about the others. At the end of the day, Yukihime and Tuda meet to talk, and she opens up. She says that the one who appeared was indeed his grandfather, but not really. He defeated the Mage of the Beginning, who possesses the body of whoever defeats her, meaning she is in his body at the moment. After this news, another revelation leaves Tuda perplexed. He is merely a clone of Negi, created from his genetic material. He feels a bit down, overwhelmed by all this information. But our protagonist can't stay like this. Then Mazor suddenly arrives, talking about the martial arts tournament. Upon arriving, he finds out he can't register this year as the deadline has passed. While he and Mazor enjoy the view from one of the buildings, Mazor's great-grandmother arrives with a woman who introduces herself as the owner of the competition and the academy they are standing in. They explain that it was there that his grandfather Negi taught. They pause for a moment to introduce the school, and everyone is happy to see the descendant of Negi's legacy. At the end of this, the tournament director receives a call saying they need a substitute for the tournament and knows the perfect person. He enters as a substitute for one of the injured fighters and will face a fighter named Curtis. They enter the field, and the battle begins normally, but Tuta finds this person familiar. Additionally, his friends watching notice something wrong with this fighter. The confrontation is difficult, but for some reason, Curtis ignores the tournament and tries to kill Tuda, which doesn't work as he is immortal. The dark magic is activated, and the fighter reveals he also knows his grandfather, Negi, and says he is just a cheap copy and was only a distraction. Suddenly, from within a magical ritual, Negi emerges, or rather, his body taken over by the Mage of the Beginning. He starts the same speech that only Tuda can save the world. Yukihime invades the location as well. With everyone gathered in the center of the battlefield, a great confrontation is about to begin. But before the fight truly starts, Negi sneezes, causing everyone's clothes in the stadium to be removed. Before the battle truly begins, Tuda is kidnapped by a Portala black hole. Inside, it feels like he is floating through memories. In these memories, he encounters the one responsible for this, Colonel Sanders. He says he was once an ally of Yukihime, but is now there to convince him to join Negi. In these memories, he sees various moments of Yukihime and Negi's journey, but in the end, the Mage of the Beginning invades the thoughts and memories, saying she was destined never to be happy. Yet, Tuda remains by her side, and with this, something seems to awaken. Yukihime, who seemed like just a memory, becomes real, wanting to end this mage. The battle is very difficult, as it is not only a mental combat. After several attacks, everything is consumed by one of them, but as he sinks, a woman saves him by cutting through those memories. It is Kagurazaka Asuna, the woman destined to share the genetics to form Tuta's clones. Soon, his other allies arrive in this world and must fight to win there, to return to the real world and start the true battle. Asuna says they have only a few seconds for reinforcements to arrive, and they begin to count. They return to the real world, and with the tips Asuna gave, everything becomes much easier. But the final confrontation between Negi and Tuta begins. Before they fight, Fate, now helping, removes Negi's spirit from the Mage of the Beginning's possession for a moment for a conversation where they know what they must do, even if Negi isn't saved. This spiritual plan inspires them to return to the fight. In the confrontation, both take the fight to another level, but meanwhile, Tuta's allies struggle to defeat the others. In this battle between Tuda and Negi, Tuta's hatred is so intense that he nearly turns the tide until he is struck from behind by one of the allies. He finds himself back on the field, discovering that his allies were also defeated. With everything lost, he tries to throw himself in front of an attack to sacrifice himself and return to the ritual, but Negi doesn't fall for it, knowing her power. With this, Kurum Maru mobilizes and removes all the pills she uses to return in time. With everything lost, Tuda becomes furious, but he forgets that the plan was working. They just needed to delay the night for a few seconds. From within Tuda, a magic is performed, taking Negi to another world created. But now, with all of Negi's students who are inside Tuda all along, they battle against him using their powers, and in the end, with everyone without clothes, of course, he is defeated in this world and returns to reality. In the end, Asuna appears, sentencing Negi's defeat, who says he awaits Tuda at the top of the tower, along with everyone else. Afterward, we see the results in the city, but they don't need to worry as Yukihime and the others took care of saving and rescuing all the civilians there. Returning to the base with everything resolved, Tuda decides on one thing. He goes to Yukihime's office, tells her he loves her, and proposes marriage. She obviously refuses, but says she isn't going anywhere. With this, all the girls in Kurum Maru become furious and chase him around the base. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this journey and want more exciting stories, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell for updates on our latest content. Share your thoughts in the comments and let us know what anime or stories you'd like us to explore next. Your support means the world to us. Until next time, keep exploring